always takes a second. So
Yeah.
we'll,
There it is.
yeah, we good?
There we go.
Can people
There
hear
we
Yep.
us
go.
now?
Well, I don't know
Yeah.
about that, but I
It's
see
okay. Are you
us.
not playing the audio or are you? I'm confused.
That's
Uh,
next time.
did you not hear a word I said?
That's next
You
time,
said we
Mikey.
have to repeat ourselves online. I wasn't.
Well,
I don't know.
it is the internet, so we do have to repeat ourselves. But we're gonna and are you talking? I keep hearing her,
Say
but are
again.
you? Maybe she's talking to cats or some shit. I can't tell.
Maybe he's talking to a demon lemur.
No, I'm not
God
talking
knows
to
I am.
anyone, but I'm still on the Zoom call on the computer. Maybe you could go log me out.
Hey, Jenny's the first one to get here. Good job. Francois
Hey,
Riotard
hey,
as well. And it's
hey.
great to have you. You could be here as long as you like. But
Wait, can
Mikey,
you
I was
hear
going to
me?
say, yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
Oh, okay, cool. Then I'm unmuted.
Yeah, no, great. I guess I thought I heard someone yelling and I thought it was you, but it was not. It was someone else. Like we live in a neighborhood where there's a lot of yelling. So look, this episode is not a part of what's right. It's not a part of why I left. It's just a stream I'm doing with a couple of my buds, Nance and Mikey, but Ann is still hanging in the Zoom call while she gets ready to run to work. And we're just coming in off of the first episode of What's Right. And I kind of want to talk about your guys' take on this because I don't think you guys knew this podcast was happening until today. So I am curious about your guys' thoughts. And then we can always get into the actual title of the stream, which is Mikey and Nance spank Dave on structures and he rage quits.
Look at that,
Don't
dude.
tempt me with a good time.
Nice, Nance. Yeah, Mikey. Mikey, I didn't realize that that's your idea of a good time. We should have hung out more when I was in Raytown. We would have had
Yeah,
so
that would
much
have been
fun.
cool.
Yeah. This keeps freezing on me, so I don't know how effective I'll be here.
What, your
So you're
phone
not
is
here-
freezing?
So you're not hearing us?
Like I am now, but it's like frozen for like I don't know 10-second bursts. So if
Oh,
I
no.
just don't respond, that's why. But I'm not gonna fucking go set up my laptop. Fuck that.
Sounds
Oh.
kind of like a you problem.
He sounds like a you problem,
Yeah.
dude.
All right. Yeah. Let me tell. Okay. So hold the fuck on. So since you're not gonna play the fucking message where I say all this, I'll just fucking say it.
Okay.
All right. When I said yeah, Thompson's the meat puppet of capital, I get that's where yeah you have a leg to stand on with how you characterize me. All right, but all right. Here's the real position. What I think is that we have to think the human being as always inside of a friction or tension or contradiction between symbolic aspects of their social self that are constantly bombarding them with pressures, motivations, incentives, values, etc. Right? There's all these reasons to keep doing what you're doing in your little symbolic position. At the same time, there's always a sense where we are not fully identical with our symbolic position. We're never completely reducible to that. There's always a gap, an irreducible gap between our symbolic selves, our social identities, and the real remainder of our subjectivity. So what Lacan figured out is like, yeah, there are, now when we say signifier here, let's be very clear. By signifier, I mean a certain symbolic position, because a symbolic position brings with it certain duties, expectations, etc. If you're a warehouse worker, if you're a CEO of a healthcare company, if you are an OnlyFans porn star, right? Those symbolic positions come with certain social facticity, certain expectations, certain incentives, motivations, etc. Point is, though, from the Lacanian perspective, is that no one is ever fully identical with those dimensions of themselves, those symbolic features. We call them symbolic coordinates, right? The certain social features that give you your identity within a structure. Okay, so structure has to do with our symbolic positions, our place within the symbolic order at large, Whereas the real has to do with this aspect of our subjectivity. And this is what makes it semi-Cartesian. What does Descartes do at the two first meditations? He breaks down his sense of positive features that make up who he is. He brackets his body, he brackets his education, he brackets his social standing, he brackets all that shit and says, that's not me. And then he goes, but in order for me to doubt, I have to exist. I think, therefore I am. The point is, there's a point of negativity that's there after all of your posic symbolic identities have been stripped away from you. And this is the Cartesian aspect that finds its way into Lacan and Zizek. And Zizek says there's a specter haunting Western academia. It's that of the Cartesian subject. And so all these postmodern thinkers that we respect over here, they have a thing where they all in their own ways kind of deconstruct the subject. What Zizek and Badiou did was reassert this subject on Lacanian grounds, that is a subject that exists within structure, that is determined by structure, while also not being overly 100% determined by that structure. There's still a space for freedom and responsibility.
Yeah. So
did you lose me for a minute?
no, I think you said
No, okay.
everything. I think you said
Okay.
everything. Nance, is there anything that is different for you on your position? Because I conflated you and Mikey
Yeah.
and Benjamin into one leftist sort of in my life. You know what I mean?
So my position, like presupposing what Mikey expounded, my position is that I'm excited to have these conversations about these things, and even to like tarry with the tragedy, like tarry with the loss of the child that got run over by the car. I think that's a necessary thing that needs to be done in like the concrete social grouping. I feel like the fact that there's an impulse to talk about it broadly is doing a disservice to the event, to the moment, to the group that it actually affects. I feel like all the conversation surrounding these things that happens in the media and online it's missing the point, and they become very convenient, like emotional wedges for people that sets them down the kind of cattle track into whatever political program they want to join up with, whether they want to be the person that says, let's focus on the singularity. This particular loss of life is a tragedy and it matters, and we need to do this. Or they do the generally leftist thing and say, oh, well, it's structures and let's talk about structures. And like either way, like, and there's, a myriad of kind of differences there that you can go down to. But like, I think it operationalizes people into ideology, whereas the only real conversation about these things that matter is at the interpersonal kind of human level. So talking about it in the media, talking about it on the internet is not communication. The people that are doing the talking are not understanding each other. They are illegible to each other because the way the world works today, we're in this hyper-dividuated, post-class fractured mass. So even if I come on here to express yesterday, whatever day it was, when I recorded a solo podcast about my own personal disgust with the Luigi thing.
Was this the dark episode? We're not talking about the live stream from your phone that we were listening to when we went to the social department. Okay.
The proper podcast episode.
Okay.
So a couple days ago.
A couple days ago, yeah.
So even that, like, I'm not communicating. I'm getting shit off my chest. Like, even that, even you misrecognized and misheard, like the only, like, it, because it's in a podcast, like, because the format, because it's this thing, it is a performance, even though, like, yes, I'm getting shit off my chest. Yes, I think I do feel a little bit better about it. That is supporting the piece that I'm writing about it. And the piece that I'm writing about it will like that is where you can actually tarry with my words and kind of internalize my argument. It's not in the podcast episode I made about it. The podcast episode I made about it is just jerking off. And my position is that I'm sick and fucking tired of people jerking off about it. But then I turned around and jerked off about it. Like, so it's this thing. Look, in a sense, it's necessary. We're all people. We're all dealing with ennui and enemy and alienation and kind of hyper individuation. So we have to like do these things to cope with the horrible world that we live in. But also, I care more about doing things to develop and build a milieu and a structure that provides rich, robust communication between concrete others. That's what matters, because Dave and Mikey, I do care about your guys' thoughts on this issue. And when we talk about it, we're not talking about it in podcast episodes. We're actually talking about it in concrete conversations. So like, that's the only thing. And it is this kind of structural versus individual point, because the narrative that this is an individual thing, let's deal with this and let's try to collectively process it. Yes, you can collectively process things, but the way the world works today with the media environment in the post-class fractured mess, it becomes a hindrance to actual communication, because all it does is pushes people further down the track that they've already started on, or it can kind of hijack them. These things become operationalized. And also, another point that I made in that podcast episode was the fact that a 15-year-old girl in Wisconsin was on the internet in forums with, I'm presuming, adults who are just talking and they're getting shit off their chest and they're expressing herself, but she's exposed to a media environment. She's exposed to a pseudo milieu that supported her coming to the decision that first, she needed to commit suicide because there was no other option. And second, that a mass shooting contained more utility for her ideology than a simple suicide. And that, to me, is fucking wrong and is fucking disgusting. So I'm very wary of these conversations on the internet, because it becomes this like wild wilderness of just a bunch of nihilists jerking off. And I'm a fucking parent. And as much time as I spend thinking about and talking with my kids about their media diet, it still is the case that they spend hundreds of hours of time unsupervised on the internet. And there's nothing I can do to stop that. So what I guess the position that I want to represent is, let's all try to be a little more cognizant of the ripple effects of these things, rather than the kind of immediate instantiated effects that the media wants us to focus on. Because that is the message of the medium, like right now, right now, right now, right now. So that, and to be honest, it's disgusting. I am exhausted. I have reached that point of fatigue where it's just tragedy after tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. And the only place that we're having meaningful discourse about these things is in our concrete conversations that are these ongoing organic things. They're not podcast episodes. I guess I just want to, bare my soul a little bit and say, hey, this is fucked up. Let's stop trying to turn this into like an instrumental supporting point for whatever political project we're working on. I think that's it. I don't know. I think it is a little incoherent because it's still very emotional and very raw.
Dave, can I go, or you want to take it?
I've talked a lot in the last episode, but for people just joining on this one, I do want to say a couple things. If you can bookmark it and you know where you'll pick up, Mikey, then I'll just say a couple officiating things. So this episode, where I get spanked on structures and rage quit, is in part just a way of killing time until a video premieres, which I'm going to redirect the audience into, and it's a continuation of what's right. I also look forward to just getting feedback from Mikey and Nance on the debut episode of What's Right. There's people who've been around for a lot of TU content who never really engaged that much, and they engaged a lot more for that. And it's in the case of like Jenny, you can see it's like close to her heart. And I think that if you aren't hanging out with the kinds of people like Matt Walsh and Candace Owens cultivates, yet this is a kind of issue that keeps you up at night, then you feel very gaslit when you're surrounded by leftish people because they want to downplay and dismiss it and act like it's a nothing burger. And that's very frustrating. And so What's Right is a way of taking a lot of the kinds of conversations that I've been having with Ann over a lot of time and bringing them online. And it's something we played with from time to time. And of course, it just speaks to the fact that we are instrumentalized. We're a part of this thing, but also TU and Dave are inextricable and part of the same next few year journey. And Ann is like on board with trying to make it a thing, but also she's taking inspiration from Why Left with Benjamin Studebaker, and the fact that what we're doing is exorcising demons. What we're doing is taking shit that we've been implanted or imprinted by when it comes to the algorithm, and we're finding a way to make something of our own out of it. We're taking Heideggerian falling, and then we are taking over it, which is to say taking over those possibilities, which is to say taking responsibility for, like, you could say it's our destiny to take over your thrownness. Like, that is what we're trying to do here. So yeah, we're in the loop, we're in the circuit, we're in the machine, we're caged beasts gnawing on the bars, but also it feels a lot better to just kind of get it off your chest and talk it out with somebody who, I mean, it keeps coming up anyway. So let's talk about it. And also let's talk about the advantageous aspect of it, which is that I don't like feeling like I'm a crypto socially conservative person just because there's a couple of these issues that keep coming up at the core of TU, and we keep having these conversations, but they don't belong in your standard McGowan conversation or whatever. They don't belong in a lot of these other venues, but it's like, yeah, but these are close to our heart. They belong in our conversations, and this is who we are. We think about these things. These things keep us up at night. Who are you to talk about this? Why are you talking about it? Well, I'm me. Welcome. This is my fucking place. So that's what's going on here. But I like what Kier said in the comments section on the episode, What's Right? Why Not Get Run Through by 100 Men? Lily Phillips. Kier, the recovering anarchist, said Ann needs to go off more often. And then she used the heart on fire emoji. And for that, I say thank you, Kier. It's really exciting to see a bunch of women came out of the woodwork for this episode, for that episode. I think that women are going to really like What's Right because it's really easy for obsessive dude bros to bracket these kinds of things or to be callous about them. Okay, but with that said, Mikey, you had a bookmark.
I mean, look, so that scene that's kind of gonna, I think, as far as TU moments where you and Benjamin, I wouldn't even say you were going like where you were like, I want to hear you say fuck him, right? And Benjamin never said fuck him. You two basically externalized the tension in me because I feel so much of what you like when you said it. I'm with you, right? Because that motherfucker is responsible. But when Benjamin doesn't say it, Brian Thompson. But when Benjamin doesn't say it, I want to not say it with him because there's a sense where he's not. The point is, for me, the Lacanian subject gives me an ability to think this through because what I don't want the left to get to monopolize structure and say, oh, you guys are just conservatives because it's personal responsibility. And I don't want the right to get to say, well, you guys actually talk about structure, so you don't believe in person. It's both. It's truly both that all of us are caught up in, that we have to navigate on a daily basis. Being caught up in a social position that puts all kinds of fucking expectations and pressures on us while also not being reducible to it. And the point is, Brian Thompson Yes, everything Benjamin said. That guy climbed the ladder and he was in the structure and he played the game, but that motherfucker wasn't identical with capital. When I said he's the meat, I wasn't being nuanced. When I said he is, there's a sense where he is the meat puppet because that symbolic position is so fucking pressure filled and incentivized that it crushes most people's ability to act freely and go fuck this shit. But at the end of the day, that motherfucker made choices that killed people. So he's fucking responsible for that shit. I don't give a fuck about the symbolic dynamic. I do give a fuck, but I don't give a fuck. And it is this contradiction that it's not the easy answer. The easier answer is to just go, oh, it's structural determinism on the one hand, or the other easy answer is just to say, there's no such thing as structure. It's always just personal responsibility. No, you motherfuckers are delusional. It's both at the same time. And the hard quest is to be able to dwell in the contradiction and tension between the two. But that's where the truth is at. People are responsible for what the fuck they do. They are also caught up in structures that put immense pressure on them to do things that they themselves normally wouldn't want to do. And
It's like we want to.
No, go ahead and cook.
I just like we want to encourage people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, but we also want to make sure that everyone has access to a pair of boots before we start harping on them. But no, that is it. That tension is disallowed in the fucking media environment.
This motherfucker like, doesn't have a pair of boots. If
fuck
Brian
him, he's
Thompson,
lazy.
If Brian Thompson doesn't have
that's
a pair,
that's why fuck him. That's why, if like enthusiastically and fully, fuck that guy.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay.
But yeah. Like this is where the only but is that guy wasn't intrinsically guaranteed from birth to do that kind of shit. If he had he had been a warehouse worker, if he had been a fucking bus driver, he wouldn't have these deaths that he's responsible for. So it is this incredible dialectical tension between the two. No, you are like Zizek's the one who's like, no, you're fucking responsible for your fantasies. You know, in the Gospels where Christ says, like, if a man has committed adultery in his heart, he's guilty of committing adultery. That's a difficult sense of responsibility because you want to go, he didn't really do the thing, dude. But Zizek's actually with Christ on this, where it's like, no, if you fantasize about it, you're ultimately responsible because even though your unconscious concocted that fantasy, you are your unconscious in a sense. Like, you have to own it. Like, traversing the fantasy means taking responsibility. This is my fantasy. And so even our unconscious shit we have to own from a Lacanian Zizekian perspective. We're responsible for, because a lot of people will say, well, you're responsible for what you do at the conscious level, but you're not at the unconscious. No, it's a hard line responsibility of Lacanian psychoanalysis, which is, no, you're responsible for your unconscious shit. But all of that is always being determined by your relationship to the others, a symbolic order. And so it's a circular hermeneutic we have to do. We have to see how people are caught up in structure, but we also have to hold them accountable. And you know who else agrees with me on this? Cornel West. In Race Matters, he says, one of like the worst things you can do with underprivileged black people is do it's just all structure. They're not responsible at all. Right? Because what you're actually doing is depriving them of their freedom, their humanity, their responsibility. At the same time, he's like, but if you also don't see the kind of poverty structures that living in the ghetto can put on an individual, you're also not tapped in to the situation that free individual is living in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're just fucking stupid.
And so,
no, I mean, okay.
We can do both.
I want to clarify because I guess that is that unnuanced talk. I have to be careful. No one's stupid for not thinking about structures. 98% of the people in the world do not think about structures. Structures are intellectual exercises. Now, we could say that they are the products of intellectual exercises in the sense that we construct them and that they are useful in certain contexts and not useful in other contexts. Or we could say that intellectual exercises discover them. In either case, they are intellectual observations. Yeah.
But situations are not. And that's why when
Right.
people see somebody do something and okay, they're ultimately responsible for it because they chose to do it. But normies can go, man, if I had been in that situation, I don't know what I would have done. That's a normie way of talking about structure.
Hey,
Dude,
not enough people liked this yet, so I'm going to run a quick ad. We'll be right back, everybody, and we will not keep talking until at least 20 of you have smashed like button. Okay, we'll be right back.
What about by the with this?
Or you're enjoying it, which means you would maybe like other stuff that Theory Underground publishes. So make sure that you've subscribed and that you click the little bell. It turns out only 40% of people who subscribe click the little bell. But I think that at least 20% of the rest of y'all just don't realize how much pushing the bell really makes a difference, especially considering the fact that at TU, we tend to put stuff out without warning. You know, there's no schedule. This is coming from the space of my freedom. I just do this stuff when I can, and I don't want to live by a schedule because I'm sorry, I've got other things that are supposedly more important. All right. Well, with that said, there's also liking and commenting and subscribing. It obviously makes a difference. If you're one of those people who considers yourself a sort of recluse, well then maybe don't worry about the commenting, but you can at least click the like button. It does make a difference. Also, if you're listening to this on the podcast, please leave us a favorable review on your favorite platform. Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
We're back. We're back. Welcome back, everybody. Good job. Thank you for liking it. Do we get enough likes that I can justify continuing? No, we need a couple more.
Let's see. Let me open up a sock or two.
Only half of the people here have liked it. Yeah, everyone go create a sock account so we can boost these numbers. only the what are it? One Direction fans, they know how to do it. And once upon a time, she was like a high schooler and she was into this band called One Direction. They're not really a band; it's a boy band. And so, you know what the little teeny boppers would do when they were trying to support their favorite guys on the planet, the ones that they wanted to marry. They would use like 3 to 5 devices in the house to play the stream from all of the devices, and then they would all create sock accounts to then have multiple accounts on every one of those devices running those streams. And that's how One Direction would break all these records, was just by putting those teeny boppers to work.
Dude, it's like TikTokers nowadays, click farms.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were innovating, dude. One Direction was innovating.
Francois says, yeah, once upon a time, she was a high schooler.
Lol.
She might still be, guys. I'm not sure. Anyway.
Look, can I just say on structure too? Here's the other place where we see there be a structure, but we also have no problem holding people responsible, right? Because it's like it's this weird thing with Brian Thompson, but all those lawmakers in Washington, like the structure, our symbolic order, our legal system is built out of the free choices of those representatives. I'm sorry, like the laws just don't poof into existence out of nowhere. Our symbolic order has been built by people in power. And yes, there's a sense where it's like, oh, the symbolic order is always already a priori or some shit. Yeah, there's a truth to that. But we also have to understand how symbolic orders are built. And these symbolic orders are structures that determine our lives, and yet free individuals end up writing them into existence. And so we also have to see how freedom is at play in the construction of the symbolic.
Dude, I was just thinking about capital and capitalism and like how things are changing, conditions on the ground are changing. And it seems like the relation of I don't know, ownership to like sales and marketing and production and distribution and shit. It seems like it's changing. And it's like workers serve a function in capitalism to perform this critique of the conditions of production. And so they put this upward pressure on the conditions of production to improve. And like this is why I think the impetus to automate and make more efficient and kind of make room for more capital, I don't think that comes from the owners. I think it comes from the bottom up. I think it comes from the workers. And because there are less workers nowadays and there are less viable, vibrant workers movements, the critique that like the internal critique of capital is kind of disappearing. And that's why it seems like things are stagnating. This is totally like total tangent, total derailing. But it is an interesting thought that that I think is interesting. I think it's worth carrying.
Sorry, you're saying the critique of capital is becoming less relevant or less prevalent, and that's because
less prevalent.
Not
because
relevant,
like
not less
so
relevant.
We talk about less prevalent.
Not less relevant, just more prevalent. Okay.
Less prevalent. So we talk about how capital does this thing where it's constantly self-improving. And we, at least as far as I'm concerned, it like most people assume it's the owners that are like the owners are like, I want to make more money, so I'm gonna like lengthen the working day. I'm gonna build more machines. I'm gonna have fewer people do more. Like that's a decision being made on the side of the owners to get more profit, to squeeze more money, get more of that surplus value. And we know that because there's this upward pressure, the rate of profit actually falls because it's a game keeping up with the Joneses. Everyone's always trying to outdo one another. And it's this constant thing where they're trying to make the line go up. And because they're doing that, the line actually starts going down. I think it's like seen as an operation on the side of the owners doing that. I actually think that pressure, that the progress, the kind of automation, the let's build machines that help me get more work done, I think that pressure actually comes from broad workers movements because they think, and this is ideology, but they buy into the ideology of, oh, if I get the machine and we have the automation, it's going to improve my daily life. And so that like the tendency of the rate of profit to fall actually comes from the workers themselves because they are the ones that are performing the critique on the conditions of production. And because that's not really a thing anymore, like it was, say, during the Industrial Revolution, that is one of the, I'm sure, many, many things that account for a lot of the changes we're seeing on the ground today.
Okay.
But this is a total tangent. Like everyone who's here right now, just listen to me say something that has nothing to do with why we're here.
Right. Real quick, Jenny, you said quite the opposite. I don't know what you're referring to. Please elaborate. If it's, I'm curious if that's related to the audio issues that were rising. Mikey, you got something to say about
preach.
Yeah, I want you to talk about Abba and Preach, and then I want to talk about the Medium and Drive, and then we can close out.
Yeah.
Okay. You know.
So I watched their video on the Lily Phillips situation.
Could we say, sorry, look, Abba and Preach are a couple of black guys. They have a really great dynamic. They're YouTubers, and they do commentariat work. They just comment on whatever's sensational and going on at the moment. Unlike us, they don't do it to funnel people into taking serious courses and seminars and learning how to write and think for themselves. They just farm it. But they have like the coolest dynamic. I genuinely like their personalities. One of them posts some like black nationalist cringe every once in a while. Every once in a while, I'll disagree with one of their takes, but for the most part, they are like one of my normie pulses. Like I actually check in on them just to kind of get a sense for like where the normies at. And I fucking love those guys. And one time I shared one of their videos on Theory Plebe, and I got several people being like, really? Oh my God, these guys. And I just wanted to burn it all down. Wait a minute, I did. That's why we're here now with Theory Underground and smart people, not a bunch of bread tubers. So anyway, I'm going to be listening as you talk about Abba and Preach and what you saw.
Okay, so hold on. I'm getting somebody's calling me. I've never dealt with this situation. Hold on.
Oh no. Well, let me talk about Abba and Preach. Okay.
Okay.
Nance. He's like, I could do it.
Right,
he's got a take. Everyone knows Nance has a take locked and ready to go on everything that exists. Yeah.
Everything.
Okay, there we go. All right. So Abba and Preach, they do this. First off, I love those guys because those are like guys I grew up with, right? So sorry, but yeah, those are just normie black guys that I feel like I know. All right. So okay.
That's called parasocial. Anyway, keep going. Yeah.
Okay,
don't
they're
do that
like
thing.
Guys I grew up with. Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
I hate people with takes like that. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, dude.
Anyway, it's so fucking lame. It's so fucking dumb. Look, so but they make a point, like they're disgusted with the whole thing, and okay, fine. I guess for me though, the thing that actually I disagree with them the most on is they're like, oh yeah, see, this kind of shit's always been happening, but the difference is now it's like out in the open. In other countries, like people can say, oh, this is Western shit, this is Western decadence. Nah, all your fucking countries are filled with this fucking vile shit, this gross shit. You guys just keep it swept under the rug. At least we have it out in the open where people can talk about it. I think that's actually where I disagree. Where I'm like, look, this idea of inherent transgression, I'm actually like, I understand human beings with our tendency towards jouissance and death drive and excess and all of the self-destruction. There has to be spaces in society for that allow certain individuals these kind of outlets. They've been with us from the beginning. They're not going to go away. I actually think, though, the point is to let them be hidden away. Like, I don't think it's best for them to be out in the open and just normalized where, a 13-year-old girl hears about this shit and it's like, this is a viable career path for me. I'm sorry.
This is porn in the woods versus porn on Main Street.
Yes. And I'm sorry, like you and I, we were talking about, we had porn, but it was very much inherent transgression. We kept it hidden.
Yep.
It was only our little friend group that knew about it. And I'm sorry, there's a sense where when you make this shit, like, oh yeah, like let's take, let's make porn stars like movie stars and all this shit. I'm like, I'm sorry, like if you want to call me a conservative, call me a fucking conservative. I don't think I am. I just think I'm a normie on this. But I'm just like, no, 100%. I don't think a career in porn is the optimal career path for most people. And
dude,
I don't think it's fulfilling when you look at here's another thing. Look, I grew up, I'm unapologetic in this. I grew up, I've always loved pro wrestling. But there was a point I would have told if a friend of mine was like, I want to be a pro wrestler, man, the death rates in pro wrestling, so many of the wrestlers that I grew up watching died in their 40s or 50s of heart attacks, of drug overdoses. There was something at work in that industry that was not healthy. Now, I think a lot of the younger generation, the guys like Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes, all the guys who are popular now, I think WWE has done a lot to correct their worst excessive tendencies.
AEW. Yeah. They're actually doing really good things with workers' protection.
Look, CM Punk, who left the WWE, completely pissed off about how terrible they treated him and the illness and the fatigue and everything he was suffering. He went back and he said it's like an entirely different company, right? Like, so I get it, but I'm saying, do you know how many porn stars die early of overdoses? Like, I'm sorry, like I don't want. I'm not a prude. We can celebrate sex. People can, I want a society where people can freely engage in sex however they want. But trying, especially younger kids, like, no, it's not the best thing. Like, when they're older and they can make their decisions, great. But
Normalizing. This
um,
is what.
this shit with OnlyFans and all of it normalizes it in such a level that any
Yeah.
girl who's like remotely attractive is just going to go, oh, well, this is what I should do with my life. When she could be a fucking architect or a philosopher or a painter or so. And I'm sorry, people go, well, you're just degrading sex work. I'm sorry that there's something surrounding this that a lot of the women and the men who get into this industry don't go on to live good lives. Maybe some of them do. Okay. I mean, there's something like Sasha
There's
Grey seems to
exceptions.
be doing okay these days, but like, I'm sorry, it was like being a wrestler in the 80s. Like those guys, most of them did not have lives that turned out well for them.
Also, we'll listen to Sasha when she's not at a point in her career where it is actually necessary for her to act like she's okay. So when but there's a point in her life where she could start acting like she wasn't okay. There's career points where she's kind of expected to play something. Right now she's expected to be like, "Hey guys, actually that was all fine." And then there's a point later on where she's expected to be like, "Actually, now that I'm older." And so she's in between those things right now, and it's like, so who knows? We can never say. But as far as we can tell, when you say it's like this word degrading, it's like, okay, Nance used to clean out porta potties, okay? Everyone knows it's degrading work. Guess what? Nobody was out here saying cleaning out potties is real work. And it's because, yeah.
Except for when you want to do a workerism and you just want to celebrate mindless, menial, dumbass labor. But setting aside that type of workerism, it is never lauded as this is glorious work. It is always, oh, that must suck to be that guy. Like we were the bottom of the bottom of the bottom. We were always the butt of the joke necessarily.
Yeah.
But I didn't
Killer
mean to
point.
derail.
I'm just saying,
killer
look,
point.
I think this thing that Abba and preach, like whichever one of them said it, like, oh, well, at least we have our shit out in the open. No, I think there are things that need to be in society where there's spaces for those outlets for that kind of shit, but they are tucked away. And this is kind of Baudrillard's point too, where it's like pornography de-eroticizes sex, right? When you show everything and it's so mechanical and it's nothing's hidden, there's nothing left concealed, there's nothing left for the imagination, you de-eroticize sex. And so much of what, modern porn is just, it's not something, oh my God, I found a porno mag. Holy shit. Now it's at your fingertips. You can watch a gazillion fucking porn scenes. You don't have to pay for them. There's no barriers. It de-eroticizes sex. And this is the Baudrillardian critique. People can say, oh, he was a prude. I don't give a fuck. He's right. Like, there's a sense where if you really want to celebrate sex, you got to understand that part of what's erotic is what's not shown, what's only implied, what's concealed. And I mean, look, any Lacanian will tell you, like, of course, like, nudity isn't the most seductive state. It's, being in sexy lingerie or whatever, like, this is the art of seduction, and other human beings have figured this shit out. But what the porn industry does is just de-eroticize everything, show everything. It's all mechanical, for the most part. And it creates a sense of sexuality that most normie human beings cannot live up to. And then people try to compare what they're doing, especially young men, think they have to live up to these fucking sex standards that they get from porn.
Yeah,
then they feel insecure and they can't, blah, blah,
no. Or they're charismatic. And getting laid's not the problem. Saying no is the issue. And they have been told that their fetishes, their kinks, and their fantasies all need to be lived out and embraced and owned up to. And then they fucking get the person that they're with to do all kinds of crazy shit with them. And then that woman eventually thinks that she was compromised because she's like, you know what? I don't like that. Like looking back, I feel you have this whole thing. You're serially dating people, and then they're like, oh yeah, I'm down for anything because you're hot. I'm really into you right now. And then later they're like, after the honeymoon period, they're kind of like, oh man. I'm just saying, I'm not saying from personal experience or anything like that, but you do end up with you. It's either you have unrealistic sexual fantasies that never get fulfilled, or they get fulfilled and you realize, even though a person's consenting to it, that doesn't mean that they don't kind of feel degraded after. And that feels shittier is what I'm trying to say.
We are interested in what can the good life be in our techno capital situation. What can we try? And I'm here. You want my little advice? Look, a meaningful sexual relationship. Now, I say that, remember, like, I'm Lacanian, there is no sexual relationship. Yeah. I'm speaking in a normie sense. I'm not using Lacanese right now. Okay. At the end of the day, a sexual relationship is a relationship between two singular beings. And whatever healthy sex life is between them is something they build on the basis of being attuned to each other's singularity in a way that loves and embraces the other. And a great sexual dynamic is not, oh, we're just playing out fantasies, or, oh, this is 10 steps to how to please a woman. Yeah, some of that shit can help if you're young, or you're like, oh, I want to make sure, I'm the kind of sexual partner that, is attuned to my part. Yeah. There's advice you can get that can help. But what porn doesn't teach you is that real sex between two loving individuals, or I don't know if three, whatever. All I'm saying is it is a dynamic where you realize you're building a special singular dynamic, and it's about being attuned to the other person and giving and receiving. And porn does not teach anybody that shit. And so that's part of the issue, is that it is just staged. It's the difference. It's like WWE sex. It's like the difference between WWE fighting and real MMA boxing. Like it's that's why it's the simulation of sex. This is not what sex is.
The simulation and the medium are what I want to go to next, Nance. Nance, you go first though.
So this point that's being made right now about the difference, the qualitative difference in pornography and a healthy sexual relationship. And we're making it without moralizing, right? Like, we are just talking functionally. There is a difference, and then we can come around on the back end and moralize, and that's fine. And I'm sure we all do, and we all will. But I don't think it's controversial. I don't think it's hard to grasp that difference. That's the same way communication works on the internet. That's why when people are getting carried away with the currents of the conversations, like, that's why I'm like, whoa, hold on. Like, you realize this is a simulation, right? You realize this is masturbation. You realize this is pornography. And like, I think it's harder for people to grasp that, because it is easier to be publicly invested in these kind of these currents of simulated communication. It's acceptable, and in fact, it's expected to publicly take up a position. I am for thing X. I am against thing Y. These are my thoughts on event A. These are my thoughts on event B. Like, it is expected for us all to do this. And we would recognize that it would be absurd if we were all expected to publicly masturbate to pornography. That would be absurd. It is also absurd.
It's what the wokes want, though, man. I know this is where it's going.
But I don't know. I want to take the opportunity to encourage people to realize that, like, the simulated communication that's happening is the same as the pornography, and we don't want the pornography, right? Like we're out here saying like, well, this is actually kind of problematic, guys. The bullshit simulated communication is also problematic. Which goes back to the point I was making of like, let's just pump the brakes a little bit. I want to sex you up as a concrete individual, just like I want to talk to you as a concrete individual. But this kind of public display of simulated non-communication is what is disgusting.
Yeah, I like that. I appreciate your guys' perspectives. I know I kind of brought you here for you guys to like punish me on structures, but the thing is like I already agree with you guys, and so I kind of just wanted to. It's a point of emphasis, and how quick are we to try to move on?
You just want people to have their moment of catharsis. They like the people who are pissed, who find a cathartic aspect of this. You're like, let them fucking have it, because that guy is responsible for terrible things.
Yeah, and also stop trying to steal our enjoyment.
Yeah, let us fucking enjoy. Sometimes you have to. It's a human thing.
We're not in. That's the thing. We're not enjoying like pleasure, guys. This is drive, and the point. And so there's like 98% of you guys don't understand what that means. So hold on a second. In the most simple sense, there are things that you do for pleasure, and there are things that you enjoy in some kind of a sense. We call it jouissance, and those are the things that you can't not do in a sort of sense. So when we say that someone's trying to take our enjoyment, there's something we can't not do, and we're trying to own up to it and make something of it with why left and with what's right. Those podcasts are all about that. And so then someone will come along and try to take the enjoyment away. And that's exactly what the person does when they try to say that we shouldn't engage with the comments section. We should just assume they're all it's like, dude, we're getting off on this right now. And instead of coming along and either joining us in the circle jerk or going on your way, you're instead trying to like turn the TV off.
Dave, can I just say, because I've been saving this, but I'm going to bring it in right now because the timing is perfect.
Okay.
In our Lacanian Zizekian circles, you've heard me mention, there's this whole thing about the theft of enjoyment. And the theft of enjoyment, or the theft of jouissance, has to do with when, especially at the ideological level, you paint a scapegoat. You say, oh, I'm a German living in 1930s Germany. Everything's fucking gone to shit. The economy, the culture, everything, blah, blah, blah. And somebody comes along and says, hey, it was the Jews who did this. And you scapegoat the structural dynamics away by pointing at an empirical group of people and going, that group is not, whenever they do the scapegoat logic, the fallacy at the heart of it is that you shift the blame from structural dynamics to an empirical referent.
Can I get a clarification on this?
What?
Is your problem that are you saying the Jews didn't do it, or we just shouldn't blame them? That's what it sounds like you're saying.
I'm saying they didn't do it. They're like the economic dynamics that were at work in German society were the workings of capital structures by the economy. Okay. Right?
I got you.
It's not any one group that's sitting there doing it. And I'm sorry, like in the land book, I use these other examples because we always use the Nazi / Jewish people example. But there's ways like the Japanese people did this to the Chinese in history. Like, we need more examples of this to go beyond this one thing. It's just Zizek's key example is that. Here's the point, though. In my circle of Lacanian Zizekian theorists, we always talk about the theft of enjoyment. It always has to do with this kind of scapegoating of one group for structural problems. Here's the thing, though. There's something they don't talk about: the theft of pleasure. That's what Brian Thompson did, and it's a real thing.
Yeah.
He stole people's well-being. He stole family members from one another, and he stole pleasure. He stole the things that gave people a sense of purpose, of stability, homeostasis, and that's real theft. Dude, that's not some fantasy cocked up by a fucking dictator. That's real theft of everyday sense of security, of meaningful structure, and he fucking stole it from them for the sake of more profits. So fuck that guy.
Fucking dude, the theft of pleasure versus the theft of enjoyment is
Nobody talks about it, but it's a real
dude.
thing.
no, like I'm changing the title of this stream since this is where you first said it. It's history, guys. So the title will be, was Brian Thompson responsible, in all caps, question mark, exclamation point, like a boomer, for the clickbait, and then the theft of pleasure, and then nobody talks about this. In parentheses, it is that sensational, but I'm glad it's here, guys. Because if you were in the chat and you weren't doing what I was doing, which is going, fuck, you know, if that was, well, you might not realize kind of the implications of that. But, you know, that I've been up the little Zizek alley here with Mikey for a while. He's been selling me that good shit, the pure, that good. And
That
I can tell you.
Got that bleed, fam. Got that bleed.
Yeah, I got that Mikey
Man,
Blue.
I'm not interested in G-Jack unless it's that baby blue G-Jack.
I want that
But
baby
no, I mean,
black.
seriously, and
I
so
want
the
that
thing
baby
is,
blue
like,
Zizek.
like theft of enjoyment is always about that. Like, oh, we had this perfect excess of enjoyment, and then you never fucking had it. It's fantasy shit, and they're appealing to you at your worst phantasmatic gullibility. Theft of pleasure is real shit. It's how they fuck up your life, how they steal a fucking family member from you, how they won't let you out of a fucking job, how they won't let you get your fucking surgery you need to feel better. That's theft of pleasure. And that shit's real as real fucking gets.
I'm officially adding to this. Drunk Mikey is back.
I'm not even, I've only had one. I'm not really drunk.
I know. But
Well,
he's off the.
You know, I said on
Clickbait, though.
Instagram the other day, I was like, man, fuck drunk Mikey. That motherfucker shows up, steals my spotlight. Sober Mikey does all the fucking work. I do all the reading and the writing, and then drunk Mikey shows up, and because he's more aggressive than sober Mikey, he gets to take all the fucking credit.
Gets all the
Drunk
fucking
Mikey.
credit.
He gets all the credit, Dougie.
Go get that fucking done, doggy. Tell me what the fuck do you fucking be my little doggy.
Oh my God, we're on it.
Dude, I fucking hate it when you make that voice.
Well,
Because
I hate it
because
too.
I just want to slap that guy, dude. Like I want to drive to KC and fucking
hey,
slap
you're
that
not
guy.
gonna do a
Everybody.
goddamn thing, doggy. I'll
Everybody. Check this out. That voice is actually the voice. We can't. Could we say it?
No,
We can't say it.
no. Leave it alone.
Okay. I can't tell you who's that.
But I won't.
But it's a real
I do have a
voice.
song for you, Dave. I do
Sorry,
have
what?
A song. I have a song for both of you. You ready? A one, a two, a one, two, three. You're my little doggies. Do your doggy
Fuck you,
duties.
dude.
All right. Okay.
I was going to click the mute button. I was going to click the mute button.
There's more lyrics, but I'm done.
Yeah, you are done. You're also in timeout.
Yeah, dude. We're
No!
banning you. We're banning you.
All right, everybody. What I'm about to show you is I said I had specific things I wanted to say, right? I did say that. And I'm about to show you one of those. All right. So let me just change a couple things around so I can share my screen. I want to say something about the medium and the post-class fractured mass. Look, there are these concepts at TU. They're absolutely essential. Sometimes you'll hear us explain them. Sometimes you'll get confused and just keep wondering until we explain them again. But we can't always explain ourselves over and over again. And Weird Solowski, the people's champion that he is, tried at one time to get me to give him a bunch of definitions all on a sheet. But it was so much work and it went so much against what I can't not do. It just never came about. But with that said, I'm going to go ahead and share when we say that the message is the medium, what do we mean? This is what we mean. Check this out. So I'm going to click out of it, and then I'll click back into it so it starts over from the beginning. Let me give it some audio. Now I'm going to click out of it and just say something really quick. The message is the medium. Everybody says it, but they don't think enough about what that means. It means that all of the cultural critics and the commentariat and all the people who spend so much time doing like a sad version of the Abba and Preach thing, that whole thing, guys, is downstream from like the whole content of the message is downstream from like the implicit framing devices, not just like that change the semantic level of the content, but actually change our perception and the conditions of possibility for our interpretation in the first place. So with that said, let me show you what the real message of the medium is. I actually had this saved in my drafts. I didn't publish it until like 10 minutes ago because I wanted to show this on screen because this is so perfect. We're talking about Lily Phillips getting sucked up into the algorithm and how her decisions go so far beyond her because of the canary in the coal mine / rooster in the morning, saying this is what it's going to be, guys. Like, here it comes. And all the people who have reached a profitability crisis or a wage crisis in their lives on their OnlyFans who are now going to seek the next level. It's just level after level after level. So with that said, though, you guys said a bunch about simulation. You guys said a lot about acceleration. Nance was talking a lot about seeing things and not knowing how to respond to them, or not liking the way that people respond to them, or thinking that we kind of lose the plot when we respond to them. And part of that is I wanted to start playing with this like metaphor of like dogs that are barking in the neighborhood like there's someone walking onto the lawn, when in reality people are just doing stuff on the other side of town. There's a kind of human being created by the internet that is like the dog that is always barking about stuff that's not going on in the hood. And with that, I want to play this to talk about the real message of the medium. The shirt comes off. Now they're shooting.
What is this from?
Your daily dose of drama.
I love that,
TNT.
dude.
I haven't seen that.
I
Guys,
love that.
That's good.
who wants to take a crack at describing what just happened for all the podcast listeners?
So if you've ever
All
seen,
right, I'm not that drunk, but I'm too drunk to try to do that. Take it, man.
if you know what the Benny Hill show is, or maybe some like Monty Python sketches, some of the old ones, like this type of absurdist comedy where things just keep escalating. Like one absurd thing happens, and then they just keep one-upping it and kind of intensifying the level of absurdity. It was that kind of mechanism, but it was like a city street in like a downtown area, and there's a kid and a lady walking on the street, and there's a car accident, and then, and then I can't, dude. There's an ambulance with American football players, and there's a person on a stretcher, and they roll them off. Like
And
it's
then
just that escalation.
The
of
ambulance starts to
absurdity.
drive away. The ambulance starts to drive away, but then the stretcher rolls out of the ambulance as it goes away. And so the lady who's like standing there, been watching this, like that she's a pedestrian, and she's just like, she sees that and she's like, like, oh shit. And then like eventually you've got a car come squealing in, does it like a donut, and guys with guns get out and start shooting at each other. And it just gets crazier and crazier. Anyway, now the difference between that and the medium is nothing, because you could say, well, with the medium, we get real content. Well, do we though? We don't know when it's real. We don't know where it's real. We can't ever get the context of when and where it's real. We don't know exactly what happened, what came after. It's not just in the clip of the police shooting where you're like, well, no, we're talking about, the Gulf War never happened. We're talking about Disneyland exists so that people think they don't live in Disneyland. We're talking about how we live in a world now where every time something goes bump in the night, we know about it. We live in the world where we are dogs barking at something going on the other end of town, and in reality your one job as a dog in that situation, or as a defense, the dog or the security system, whatever, the security system of the family, like it's you're only supposed to be reacting when there's a real threat, right? And so the dog is, when the dog barks all the time, the dog is officially not doing its job, and actually it's undermining its job, because if the guy shows up who's gonna like break in and fucking rape and kill you or whatever, like, well, then the dog's barking, maybe it'll take on a different tone. I'm not saying it wouldn't, of course. But also, it is playing the boy who cried wolf, that dog is. And we're out here, there's always something for us to talk about. Every week, there is a new thing. And it did not happen in our neighborhood. It didn't happen to anyone that we love. And then people come along and say, well, it's structures. And it's like, okay, well, between... Let's care about the actual kid that got ran over and the structure that made it so there was no speed limit. Like, could we also just realize that kids only get hit like once in 15 years, and when it happens, it changes the lives of the people who are involved, but outside of the people who are involved, nobody else in the fucking world even knew that it happened. So that's the medium. The medium is making that shit all the time, and then undermining the credibility of all of that, taking away the weight and stakes of all of that, meaning we're kind of randomly getting fucking preyed upon by algorithms that are feeding us stuff that would be made up if it wasn't real. So that's the thing, is we don't know the difference between what's real and what's made up, because we got people aping what's been made up and then crying about it. It's like, well, she did that, but did she really do that? She wouldn't have done that outside of this simulation. She didn't do that back in the 1990s. She's doing this in a different context now. The medium is what we're talking about when we talk about structures.
And just to kind of preempt the people that will inevitably come along in the comment section and say, well, Debbie Does Dallas did that in 1999 or 1997 or 19,
the internet did,
whatever.
We
yes.
could do that. Yeah.
Or
The internet, that's the thing. It was not the same type of social coercion. There was no ubiquitous platform. That there was no megaphone on every street corner under the pillow of every single child in the world saying, this is good, this is virtuous, this is liberation, this is freedom, this is what we should struggle and strive for. There was not this type of reinforcement, social coercion. So yes, you can sit back and say, actually, but when you're doing that, you're not fucking listening.
Yeah. Or thinking. Yeah.
And there's a difference between society putting a certain taboo or prohibition on something and then yet secretly allowing it to have a hidden spot and blaring it out, going like, this is like, I don't want people, like, do I want sex workers to be punished in some more? No. I don't want to live in some fucking society where people who do who break certain taboos are severely punished. I want it kept under the rug. Do your thing, but it doesn't have to be advertised like this is the best fucking way of life for young. Like, hello, there's a sensible way of navigating this shit.
Porn in the woods versus porn on Main Street.
Yeah,
it's that different. Yeah, those are concepts now. Like those are concepts now.
Yeah, they
Those
are.
Technical
You
concepts
made them
now.
into concepts just now. They're official.
Yeah. In the same way that we do this canary versus exception. Like the
You
exception
still
to the
have to
rule.
write that post.
I will. Exception to the rule versus canary in the coal mine. All right. Mikey, are you falling asleep right now? Like, what are you, what are you doing?
I'm just a little
You
tipsy.
gotta like take your shirt off. Mikey,
Yeah.
you're looking awfully seductive, Holmes.
Yeah, dude. What am I supposed to
Looking
react?
fresh.
Like, do I do it too? Is that what I'm supposed to do?
Are we doing that right now?
It's like actually Mikey No Neck. We can't call him that right now. He has one. I've never seen it before.
Got it, Nick.
I've never seen it before, but look, guys, he actually has one. Fuck.
Motherfucker's looking
Shannon
crispy
was like-
too, dude.
Shannon was like, I don't like the Duck Dynasty beard. I love like your beard short. So get rid of the Duck Dynasty beard. I was like, yes, ma'am.
Dude, I was watching an old video of Benjamin. Like it came up, and I don't know. His face, dude. Like it was like bearded, and he was on this channel, and it was before I really knew him at all. And I was like, that's me before I was just like talking to him like he was anyone else on the channel. And he had a beard. And now I'm like looking back on that and it was so uncanny. It like fucked me up. I still don't know what to do.
All right,
I
look,
don't know what to do.
We need to have a conversation with him about this.
Are you gonna go to bed?
I'm gonna go. No, I'm gonna go get me another fucking drink in a minute. And
Okay.
Christian called, so I got to call him back. But
What's up,
Nice.
Christian? Tell myself what's up.
I will.
Yo.
Here's what I'll
Yo,
just
Christian.
say. Look, I will. So, some of my coworkers are Zoomers. We've talked about the Lily Phillips thing. The older coworkers know about it. Like this is a thing that gained a lot of media traction because everybody I work with knows about it for the most part.
Mhm.
And we had a good conversation. We were sitting around and had some time, and this opened it where I'm just like, man. And I see this with some of the younger people I talk to, who I know, they're kids of my friends that I grew up with. I'm sorry, like there is a sense where the level of porn they're exposed to has fucked them up. And what I mean by that is they all have these incredibly unrealistic like senses of what sex is supposed to be or what they're like, and they're all insecure about themselves. I think a lot of this has to do with like why you see like there's like younger people are having lesser sex at a young age than their parents did. There's so much insecurity baked into all this shit, and you got to realize this is Lacanian 101. Like what porn does is tell you what you have to be in order to satisfy the other. It's a plague of fantasies. Like
Yikes.
fantasies tell you like you don't know what the mysterious enigmatic desire of the other is. Well, a fantasy fills in this gap. It says this is what you've got to be to satisfy the other, to make the other enjoy, to make the other happy. Well, if you've got young boys watching porn thinking they've got to be like that and have dicks like that and have bodies like that and be able to fuck like that, in order to have a meaningful relationship, they're all super fucking. You get the incel shit. You get all these guys who think they can never satisfy a woman, and then it drives them fucking nuts.
Yeah, dude.
And I'm sorry, this shit has a deeper structural effect. We're talking about structure. Here's where it comes in. Like it has a deeper structural effect on our society than people understand. Because if young men and women are going to porn thinking that's going to inform them on what they need to be as a sexual partner for somebody else to have a meaningful relationship, those fantasies are going to kill their lives, because that is not what real sex is. That is not what it's fucking about. There's nothing loving about it. There's nothing. And when I say loving, I don't mean like, oh, it has to be presented as like two people who waited till they were married, like some Christian. Like, no, I just mean two people who genuinely care about each other and genuinely want to give each other
and are present to the moment
and embrace each other.
Yeah.
I'm just, that is not, you don't get anything about what meaningful sex between consenting adults actually is. And you get all of these unrealistic bullshit fucking standards of what you think you're supposed to do. It makes people, it gives you a sense of what sex is that doesn't actually lead to sexual enjoyment, and blah, 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 blah. And I just see young people are caught up feeling insecure as fuck about themselves based on porn expectations.
Did Pornhub create Elliot Rodger or create conditions of possibility for Elliot Rodger? I think so. I think that's a good clickbait title too. Pornhub
Yeah.
responsible for Elliot Rodger? Question mark?
Oh,
Question
shit.
mark?
Yeah.
And there's a way to be anti-porn without actually being anti-porn. Like, I don't care if consenting adults make videos and like on this level. The point is, should it be one click away for a 13-year-old? Like,
That's the
isn't there a
issue.
whole point of why?
That is the
No,
issue.
not everything is for kids to be able to get access to.
And it shouldn't be a VPN away either. That's the issue. So,
Dude.
because kids know how to get that.
Kids
So
know their way around everything.
yeah, it's like all you have to be is slightly literate when it comes to the medium. Okay, really quick. I know that you got to go, Mikey. You got Christian coming over, and Nance. I know you have something, but I wanted to say something that I feel like makes this a lot more real, even if we don't want to get more real about it. But I just feel like it has to be said that there is, on the socially conservative, formerly leftist, or still some kind of leftist, but now socially conservative, or ex-left, but socially conservative, whatever, that spectrum across the whole thing, which would include like liberal authors who are socially conservative, like Christina Hoff Sommers or whatever. They'll kind of take up this line that only a female-bodied person could on average, take as a prior, which is that the solution to this is guys realizing women's dignities are at stake, and so you just need to not do it. And so Louise Perry, in the Case Against the Sexual Revolution, she talks, there's really powerful moments in that book where she talks about like the percentage of men who are like sitting in shame seconds after coming to porn on a screen, and that shame eats them alive, and they keep going back to it, and they never find meaningful relationships. And she thinks the solution is, guys, you just have to stop. And there's a problem for us. There's a problem for us as theorists, but specifically as male-bodied theorists, who on average are not being understood, and in fact are being misrecognized by Louise Perry and by Nina Power, who recently, when I brought up porn and what it's doing to boys and all this, she just kind of talks about how it eroticizes, and that actually you just, don't show as much and all. It's just like, the point is that there is a fucking demon in the overwhelming majority of male people on this planet. And so I'll say that 90% of women do not understand 90% of men. And what I mean male-bodied people versus female-bodied, I mean literally like at the level of like the chromosomes. But I'm talking on averages though. So there are people who are exceptions to this rule, and there's a lot of symbolic constructed shit involved here. But the point is that a woman can go until she's 30 without having ever thought about orgasms. It's possible. Without ever having thought of an orgasm. But a boy doesn't make it past 13 on average, okay? And so you can't escape it. Now, girls in today's society, good luck not knowing about that. But the point is that without education or propaganda, a girl can go to be 30 years old without having ever even thought about an orgasm. You have like Ben Shapiro's wife thinking that a wet pussy is like actually a bad condition. It's like a sign of something bad. It's like the reason such people exist without propaganda or education to show them otherwise is because they don't get erections in uncomfortable situations and then have, if you don't jack off, night emissions that are embarrassing and then you feel all kinds of shame about. And that religion tries to use this moment to make men, their little cuck boys, to their religion forever. Right? That's something that's going on. And when I say there's a demon inside of most men, I mean there's something that they can't not do, which is address that situation. That situation needs to be addressed. How do you address it? Now, that's a real problem, but it's a real problem that these female people do not understand. They just do not understand it.
Yeah, it's not a socially constructed problem.
It's not. You can try to construct your way out of it, but and maybe boyos on hormone blockers, maybe something for them. I don't know. But
if you tell a teenage boy that he can't jack off, that's torture. Fuck off. Like, that's fucking nah. That ain't like.
Look, being a teenager means you're a little coomer when you're a boy. This is why women mature at least 5 years ahead of guys, because like for those 5 years, those guys are little coomers, guaranteed. Now that can go on until they're until they're old. What did he say? Mother would pinch my devil's finger when it stood up, made me normal.
Oh fuck. Devil's finger. Thanks a lot, Kennedy.
Dude, dumb.
That's horrific, dude.
I'm gonna pin that comment for a while. That's really good.
I'm sorry. I mean, I look, we can't talk for it because I got to go. But look, a lot of this shit is baggage from Christianity. I'm sorry, it is. Nietzsche got it right. Christianity basically poisoned Eros. It turned it into a vice. Bataille has understood this shit. Like, sexuality had a place in society and in religion. You know, for Bataille, when he talks about transgression, that his actual great example of a transgressive act is a religious act, because it was religious acts that were these expressions of sensuality and all of this. It was fucking Christianity that came along and made sexuality dirty, and when you make it dirty, then it leads to all these other things because it's so fucking taboo that and so in a way we are still dealing with the after effects of Christianity's negative impulse and negative effect towards sexuality.
I just have one joke for you before you go. The perfect closing statement, though. And I think that this part is something that I'm going to want to show Anne. I'll show Nina. I want them to think about it. Mary Harrington, Louise Perry, Nina, but also expanding it out. Christina Hoff Sommers. Like, Sommers wrote a book about boys and like the problems that they face. Nina went and did all these interviews with men in her life and wrote a book called What Do Men Want? And I just think that neither of them in their research were thinking about the fact, look, when I say 90% of women don't understand 90% of men, I'm getting it, and I'm speaking loosely with men and women here. I mean males and females. I'm speaking loosely. When a woman thinks about drive, she can relate. She can definitely relate. When Helen Rollins talks about, hey, the sexes, they're not that different. They both are subjects of lack, and they both have drive. 100%. But 90% of women,
they don't get.
But 90% of women do not get rape. So let's just leave it at that. Stay in your lane. And actually, you need to probably actually have a real conversation about like the drive side of things. And like that's real shit that guys don't deal with, philosophers don't deal with it. And it's just, to me, it's insane that it's just no, people won't talk about it. And that's part of what I love about What's Right is that the premise of this podcast is we can get into that kind of shit. So thank you for making it here, Mikey. And I wanted to read this joke though, because it was so funny. Who was it in the chat? Who said it about
Jenny?
Proud Boys? Jenny said, where the hell is that comment?
Makes you wonder what all those Proud Boys are doing. I doubt they're very proud of it.
And then I said, there's two kinds of Proud Boys. Ones who just need to jack off, and the other ones who cannot not, and they feel deep shame.
Bing bong, bing bong, King Kong.
All right,
let's
everybody.
all go to a Diddy party.
Yeah. Oh shit. What the fuck are you talking about? Jesus Christ.
I'm gonna go lay pipe, guys. I'll catch you later.
What
dude.
just happened?
Catch you on the flip side.
How did we get here?
How did we get here?
Hey everybody, we're closing it out right now, but if you stay in the audience, you'll get rated into a premiere for some What's Right content. Thank you, everybody. This was great. Thanks, Mikey. Thanks, Nance. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to talk to you guys for a second after this is over. But everybody on the public side.
Bye, guys. Thanks for hanging out.
Free and public work at TU by becoming a patron over at Patreon.
But if you would like to get involved and become a member at Theory Underground so that you can listen to special content that is not accessible to anyone else, or if you go up a subscriber level, actually join in the discussions, or at the top level, have us actually read your work, giving constructive feedback, and ultimately paving a way to potentially being a part of what we call the turn, then you'll want to become a subscriber. That's how you will access the ongoing courses and seminars. We've brought together Benjamin Studebaker's experience in political theory and science and philosophy with my critical social theory, phenomenology, existentialism, critique of political economy, critical media theory approach, combined with Michael Downes's fault line theory, the CCRU.
I'm bringing us back on the air
No,
to clear
no,
the
I gotta
record.
go.
No, we're on record right now. What did you just say?
What, about what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, well, a minute ago you were like,
Yeah.
Well, they don't get raped. And I'm sitting here going, that sounds like what you just said is they don't understand why we have to rape them sometimes. And I'm like, you maybe want to clarify. That's not what you meant. God damn it.
Yeah, no, I agree that I need to clarify that. As soon as you said that, you guys were laughing your asses off, but I was instantly like, well, let's go back on while we're still alive. And I'm just going to say, just to be super clear, I don't see myself as belonging to a we with rapists. So
absolutely.
I am a man.
Right, yeah.
I'm trying to be a man. I don't know what a man is, but I'm working on it. And rapists are not men. And so I am using that in a normative, moralistic, prescriptive sense. And I am adjudicating from my sovereign position here. And I'm saying that in no uncertain terms, rapists aren't men, and that a man who beats his wife is not a man. That is you could call him a lot of things. There's a lot of words that might work, but man is something that you have to undergo some rite of passage to, or if we live in a society that's too ambiguous for that, but we just kind of have a sense for it now, even if we can't grant it from some institution or whatever, we can definitely subtract it. All right. So, we can subtract it because I could say you're a bitch. And I can also say you're not a man. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's all I wanted to say. So I don't see myself as belonging to that. So no, it is not that sometimes we have to rape women. No, sometimes someone who could have been something better, someone who could have been something better, ended up failing somehow, and and it was probably there was a path to failure, and it was probably paved with all kinds of things that were not their own fault, but also moments of weakness along the way, and they devolved or degenerated into this serval worm-like becoming reptilian being. And all we're saying is, hey, we get where they're coming from because we are constantly working on ourselves to not slip down fucking paths that end up somewhere where once you're there, you go, wait, how did I get here? And you're standing over the dead body. There's a path that gets you there. And we take active responsibility in our own personal lives to work on not slipping too fast or far.
You know who else said there's a path that gets you there?
Who?
Richard fucking Ramirez, one of the most infamous serial killers. He himself said that he's responsible for what got him. He said there's certain doors you knock on and you go through them and you keep going through them. And so Ramirez himself, who I think is the best example, I hate using best here, but I don't know what else to say. I knocked on doors. I went through those doors. I'm responsible for what I am and not society. And so coming from like one of the most notorious serial killers, maybe we ought to fucking listen to that and go, okay, it's not just structure.
Who's the guy using underground theory introduction? the punk who fucking raped people on
Gigi?
stage. GG Allen.
Gigi Allen?
Yeah,
Gigi Allen.
Gigi Allen. Gigi Allen. He also said the same thing. He said, "Yeah, my
Knock on
parents,
doors.
my dad beat the living shit out of me and almost killed my brother, and my mom was a captive." But then he says, "You know what? No, I chose everything." And his brother said the same thing. Yeah, we chose it all. So I don't know. There's something to think about.
Dahmer also took responsibility. He was like, "Yeah, you can do this whole thing of like blaming the structures. No, I'm ultimately responsible."
Choice.
Okay, we're gonna close on Francois Riotard's comment. Mikey, quote, Richard Ramirez is the best. Ha ha ha. Take care, everybody.
Hey, out of context.
You can support the free and public work at TU by becoming a patron over at Patreon. But if you would like to get involved and become a member at Theory Underground so that you can listen to special content that is not accessible to anyone else, or if you go up a subscriber level, actually join in the discussions, or at the top level, have us actually read your work, giving constructive feedback, and ultimately paving a way to potentially being a part of what we call the turn, then you'll want to become a subscriber. That's how you will access the ongoing courses and seminars. We've brought together Benjamin Studebaker's experience in political theory and science and philosophy with my critical social theory, phenomenology, existentialism, critique of political economy, critical media theory approach, combined with Michael Downes's fault line theory. You know, the CCRU versus Ljubljana School, or Žižek versus Land. And of course, how he brings those against one another and then transcends them through other thinkers like Baudrillard, who he'll be teaching an intro course to in 2025. All of us are teaching stuff in 2025 that rhymes or argues or goes together. And so the best way to accelerate your development getting into theory right now is to just become a subscriber at TU. Just go to the website, click get involved, and look, what I'm about to play for you all is a really special moment from our documentary that we're working on. An interview where Benjamin explains why he's supporting Theory Underground and getting involved as a active member here at the core of the teaching team.
Yeah, so the thing that I notice is that a lot of people criticize the university, they criticize the left, they don't build an alternative institution. They will go, the university sucks, but you know what's great? Substack and Patreon and YouTube, and they'll lean into that. But that is a negation, right? You guys don't do that. You guys are interested in sublating the university within the newly emergent media. Or you could frame it the other way, sublating the newly emergent media within the university, right? And so this, of course, will ultimately lead, if you take it where it goes, to a question of institutions and having actual economic, social role possibilities for theorists. This is the critical crisis, which is that there are still some very bright, very well-educated people, but they are not able to replace themselves. And because most of them have university positions, their level of interest in replacing themselves is to some degree compromised.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry that much about themselves. They don't have that much stake in it because they're already set up. However, because you are in the underground, you have some potential of being able to actually create an institution or structure which makes it possible for people to do theory in the future. This is something that, as far as I can tell, only you are doing. The thing about freeing Mikey from wage labor, this idea not only that your channel would free you from the Amazon job, but that this could grow in such a way that it could provide spaces for multiple people, and then those multiple people could interact in the way that they would in a monastery or in a university department. This is the revolutionary idea in terms of raising consciousness and making it possible for us to think in such a way that we could return even to the horizons of the tens and talking about things like Medicare for all in a not stupid, not bullshit way, in a serious way. To get to that point, we need to raise our level of ability to think. We need new intellectuals in our generation that are real intellectuals and not people who are running around scared of what the DSA or their university department thinks of them. You have the potential to actually make a real material intervention into not just knowledge production, but in Bildung, into the making of people. Yeah. This is something that we can do. There's a window right now where I am not in the university, and so I have a real reason to think very seriously about, can we do something else? Because I'm annoyed, myself with the whole process of trying to be in that. And I would like there to be something else, something better. I have all my critiques of it that come in part from being at Cambridge, in part from studying ancient thinkers. We could do something better than it. Not just something that is an imitation or steals some things from it and does the best you can with it, but something that actually is better and that produces the kind of theory that in modernity, how do you make a Hegel? How do you make a Marx? We have to reinvent this. It's no longer possible to do that. We've got to, I think, actually institutionalize in a material way, and this is the sense in which I will uphold the kernel of materialism, actually giving a shit about the structure and what kind of structure is necessary to give rise to a form of life in which this kind of really, really good work can be produced.
What you are about to hear is a short DIY ad made by the Theory Underground crew, just to remind you of the best way to keep up with and support this kind of content.
If you're still listening to this, then the chances are you're enjoying it, which means you would maybe like other stuff that Theory Underground publishes. So make sure that you've subscribed and that you click the little bell. It turns out only 40% of people who subscribe click the little bell. But I think that at least 20% of the rest of y'all just don't realize how much pushing the bell really makes a difference, especially considering the fact that at TU, we tend to put stuff out without warning. There's no schedule. This is coming from the space of my freedom. All right, guys, I'm sorry. I know that you all thought you were going to get dropped into the Premiere chat. Let me fix it for you. Let me say, it's okay. Don't worry. Watch. I'll fix it. Watch. Here we go. I'm going to take the Premiere, the link to it. I'll drop it into the live chat. You can click on it there. I'm sorry. We missed the Premiere because we're having too good of a conversation. It's all because Mikey pointed out that there was a problem with what I said. I wanted to clarify myself. Sorry. Okay, now with that said, I'm going to share the link. You can go back to the beginning of the Premiere and push 1.5 speed to catch up, and then there you go. You'll be there. All right? Looking forward to it. See you there. Very cool. All right, peace. But I just do this stuff when I can. And I don't want to live by a schedule because I'm sorry, I've got other things that are supposedly more important. All right. Well, with that said, there's also liking and commenting and subscribing. It obviously makes a difference. If you're one of those people who considers yourself a sort of recluse, well, then maybe don't worry about the commenting, but you can at least click the like button. It does make a difference. Also, if you're listening to this on the podcast, please leave us a favorable review on your favorite platform. Thank you.
Thanks for listening.